Hello and good day to you all. My name is Angelica Garma Villala, and as of this date, I shall be discussing the topic in regard to the barriers of listening for the purpose of informing and guiding you, my dear viewers, to more effective listening. Alright, so barriers of effective listening. About 70% of an average person's waking hours are spent communicating, but how much of that time do you think is spent listening? Around 45%. Now, what percentage of the information given in a 10-minute video or presentation does a listener retain? 50%. Then, what percentage of information is remembered 2 days after the presentation? 25%. In spite of the fact that we have these percentages, however, these do not account for everyone and all the barriers in between that hinder us from those numbers. The key to improving listening skills is to overcome the barriers to effective listening. But what are they? Here are 7 barriers to effective listening. Let's go. Let's put it in general. There's physical barriers. These are such things as background noise, poor lighting, temperatures that are too hot or too cold, tangible items that may interfere with communication efforts. Using this because y'all have no attention span. Look at the one. All right. And there's also attitudes, emotions. Sometimes strong emotions like anger or sadness can taint your objectivity. Being extremely nervous, having a personal agenda, or asserting a need to win the argument can make communications less than effective. Such interfering emotions are also known as emotional noise. Language, too. They may seem like a minor obstacle, but even people who stay the same native language can have difficulty understanding each other if they are from different generations or different regions of the same country. Slang, professional jargon, and regional colloquialism can hurt communicators with even the best intentions. There's also physiological barriers like ill health, poor eyesight, hearing difficulties, and pain are all physiological obstacles to effective communication. Cultural noise. People sometimes make assumptions about others based on their cultural background. Associated stereotypes. Lack of common experience. It is a great idea to use examples or stories to explain or enhance a point. However, if others cannot relate to these examples because they do not have the same knowledge or shared experiences, then this tool will be ineffective. Or how about maybe just jumping to conclusions, giving inappropriate feedback or rebuttals, making assumptions before listening to all the facts can be problematic in the least. This all sounds like a lot, and in spite of the fact there are this many, we won't be going through all of them in detail. No worries, I'll make it a little less for you guys. In addition to this, I will go over the barriers and how to overcome them with the best of my abilities. In the event that you, dear viewers, are experiencing a barrier of a similar likeness, I hope you will be able to look to this video and find ways out of that pesky conversation. Let's go over the barriers. For this, I will be focusing on the most common barriers to listening. The 7 most common barriers to effective listening are content of the message or topic, appeal of the speaker, distractions, emotions, language, selective perception or details, and finally, inappropriate feedback or rebuttal. Let's freaking go. If you are listening to a message about which you know very little or very much of, what can you do to overcome this barrier? Maybe the topic is just boring for you. Maybe you don't care about it. Maybe it's something that you actively do not like. And that is going to be difficult. The solution here is to develop a curiosity and just keep your mind up that you're make your mind up that you're going to take an interest in what the other person is saying. Anticipate important message content. Look for areas of interest in the message. There's a comedian, Jerry Seinfeld. I think he's a really funny guy. He also has a lot of insight, but he says that if you're talking to someone who is completely boring and very ordinary, you can still find something interesting in the most ordinary person if you just take interest in what they are saying. So curiosity and taking interest is a choice, and it's one of the things that I will recommend to you if you're not really into the topic that the person is talking about. Remember that something of value can always be learned. If you are listening, or maybe if a speaker does not appeal to you for some reason, how can you overcome this barrier? Concentrate on the message itself and not on the person delivering the message. Sometimes the speaker is boring or uninteresting, or they're doing something distracting. I'm distracting you with this. Throwing you off. They say a lot. Maybe they're a soft talker. Maybe you just can't get over something about them. And what I like to do in this situation is to not be too judgmental of the speaker, and I try to have a little bit of compassion for the person as a human being and not worry about how they're performing as a communicator, but just tune into who they are as a person and care a little bit more about them. If you find yourself distracted by noise, lights, room temperature, odors, or other people talking when you are trying to listen, how can you listen better? This is common. Eliminate distractions if possible. If you have your phone on your desk when you're trying to listen, you can very likely be preoccupied with that. If you are distracted by noise or other conversation coming from a different room, that can throw you off. So, what you have to do is manage these distractions. Turn the phone off and put it completely away so you can't even see it. Close the door, move to a different location, put the dog in the other room for a while so you can focus and not be distracted. This barrier, similar to this, is preoccupation. It is also a distraction, albeit a more internal or physiological one. It's very related to the first, but in this case, preoccupation is happening in your mind. So you might be already thinking about something else when you enter a conversation. You might have the anxiety about something. You might be thinking about what you're going to do in the future in a little while, and that can preoccupy you. Increase your concentration on the message. Next, emotions. If you find yourself interpreting the information in relation to your own mood rather than the message itself, how can you overcome this barrier? Try to identify interfering emotions before listening to the information. Take notes and interpret the information at another time. If you are listening to a message that is ambiguous or could have more than one meaning, or have a particular speech along the lines of those slang words that go over one's head despite your languages being the same, how can you overcome this barrier? Realize that different words have different meanings to people. Evaluate the context in which the word is used. Ask for clarifications. When you find yourself focusing on certain parts of the information in a message, such as that information that supports your own beliefs, how can you overcome this barrier? Identify the purpose of the message and look for supporting information. Listening too much to the details and the facts in a conversation, if you're listening to some content in the workplace setting, or if you're listening to that, of course. So a lot of times we get focused on the details, and when I, for instance, try to follow every single move, I get a bit lost and I lose the big picture. The solution here is to back up a little and listen to the overall big picture and not worry so much about the details. You can always ask follow-up questions later if you've missed something. But if you're listening to the overall message, then you're much more likely to tune in and really focus on what the person is saying. If you find yourself making emotional or premature comments when listening, how can you overcome this barrier? A lot of times, instead of listening carefully, we're figuring out what we're going to say next, and we're getting ready to jump in. And if we're thinking about what we're going to say next, and maybe you want to debate with them or have a little comeback, then they're really not going to focus much on what they're saying. Yeah, we're not going to be able to focus at all. So don't worry about what you're going to say next. You can figure that out, and there can be a pause in the conversation. That's not a bad thing. That's often a good thing. You don't want to worry about that. Just focus on them and worry about your response for later. Allow the speaker to present his or her message before providing feedback, and censor your feedback and appropriate emotions. And there you have it. The mighty key to improving listening skills is to overcome the barriers of effective listening. Well done coming this far. Taking everything into account, I'm sure you, my viewers, have learned a good bit of information on the barriers of listening and how to overcome it, yes? I'm wondering where you see yourself in this list. Which one or more of these are you most likely to be distracted by or put off by? Which of these are your biggest barriers? Feel free to comment down below. And thank you for watching.